Hello, my friends. My name is Irvin, also known as Kubuman. Today we're talking about Outlook, troubleshooting Outlook, and some things we need to look at, especially if you're getting certain connection errors, like so, right? These are some of the connection errors that you may receive when you use Outlook, and I'll explain to you how these can come about and the things you need to look at when it comes to connection issues within your Outlook. So let me go ahead and close this here. And in order for us to troubleshoot properly, we have to close Outlook and look at the certain settings that are within Outlook without actually having Outlook open. Because here's the thing, some things cannot be changed from within Outlook, for example, Exchange or email Exchange server settings. So let's say, for example, you have an Outlook and the first thing you get, it says cannot connect to the Exchange server. So what is Exchange server, right? Exchange server is an email server, right? So for those who are new to Outlook and want to learn more about this, whenever I say Exchange server, it means it's an email server that basically this is where your email account is, and this is where every time you log into your account through Outlook, all of your inbox data or emails, right? You can call them just emails, are located inside of Exchange server, right? So I like to explain things in a totally different way than most of the other guys that are on YouTube or maybe even some other, educational platforms, because I think that it's important to explain things in such manner that it's easy to understand, right? So moving on, now we know what Exchange server is, and we know that Exchange server has our inbox, has our emails, and if we can't connect to it, then obviously we can't use this email, nor can we access any of data that's on there, right? So let's have a look. Let's say you have Outlook and you cannot connect to it. The first thing that we need to do when it comes to troubleshooting is obviously close Outlook and then access Outlook settings through Control Panel. So while you're inside a Control Panel, by the way, first time you open up Control Panel, whether it's in Windows 7 or 10 or 8, this is how it's going to look like by default. It's gonna be sorted and viewed by category. I personally like to change this immediately, and I usually go for small icons, but large icons will give you the same icons, it's just a little bit larger. So what I'm looking for is actually an icon that's called Mail within Control Panel. What this does, whenever I click on it, which is what I just did, it opens up our mail setup for Outlook. If you don't have Outlook installed, or Microsoft Office, if you will, Outlook comes as part of the Office, this icon will not be present inside of Control Panel. But here we are at the right place. Now, when it comes to troubleshooting, server connection, in our case, Exchange server connections, we have to look at our email account settings, which is the very first thing we have here. So that makes it pretty easy. And I'll actually go back down here to kind of show you what these other things are as well. So let's look at email accounts. So right now I have set up what is basically called IMAP /SMTP server settings for a Gmail account that I'm using. But nonetheless, this is how it will look like in a business environment. You would have your email address here, and it would tell you what type of account you have set up. Now, let me show you. This is exactly what happens when a user logs into the computer for the first time and they've never opened up Outlook ever, right? This is the first thing they will get right here. So if someone logs into a computer for the first time ever and they try to open up Outlook, they go in here and they find Outlook, right? There's Outlook, and then you click on it. this is the first thing that will show up because an account has never been configured previously. Typically, in a domain type of environment, so business environment, right? Your Exchange server settings, so your email settings for your domain account will be attached to itself, right? So that means that your domain login, so login for your computer, whenever you log into your computer, you see how I'm logged in right now, right? So if I sign out, right here, sign out, and then I log in with a different login, and it happens to be a domain login, it will have my email account information attached to it. So when I open up Outlook for the first time, this will automatically populate, of course, if set up correctly, but this is usually what happens. This will automatically populate, and it would be as in an example below, it would say something like this. For example, Alan Adams, this whole thing would be filled out. Alan at Contasso.com, and it would fill out your password automatically because it uses your login information to fill this out, and that way it automatically connects to the Exchange server, right? So once this is filled out, it will basically do it on, most of the time will do it on its own, and then you simply click next, and then it would go through this, and it's not going to connect now, obviously, but it would connect, and it would do its thing, and then you would simply click finish, and then you would get to your inbox. It will look just like this. Once we're done with that, you open up Outlook, and it will look like this. Similar like this. It wouldn't have Gmail, but it would have inbox, and you'd have your emails in there and whatnot, right? So that's how it would look like the first time you log in to Outlook, right? And this one is broken, the Gmail connection. So and I left that like that on purpose so that we can have a look. Okay, so let me close this here. Okay, now if you are in a type of business environment where you have to set up things manually, some businesses, especially smaller businesses, even though they have a domain login for the user, they may not necessarily have Exchange server set up in such manner where you would populate these things automatically. This is usually the case with older operating systems like Windows XP. I remember doing this back in the day. For every time somebody launched Outlook and they used Windows XP, I had to do it manually. I had to configure manual setup for the server types and this and that, right? So here's our options. If we select manual here and then go click next, it gives us a few options. The first thing is Microsoft Exchange server or a compatible device. So we already know what the Exchange server is, right? So we want to connect to it because this is a business environment. We want to connect to it. If we click next here, we would manually type in the name of the server. For example, it would be email server at, I don't know, let's say Outlook.com, right? Let's say let's just say that that's the case, right? And if you click check name, it would find it and it would fill this out. And once it finds it, you would usually replace this in a domain profile format. So whatever you have for your domain, it would replace it, and it would know automatically that you are part of this email server, or basically that you do have access to this email server. And after that, you can simply click next, and it would connect to it. Obviously, we can't do it because I'm not recording this at my work, right? That would be pretty bad if I actually did. So anyways, I'm going to click OK here, and I'm going to cancel. But this is what would happen. So if you're having, okay, this one's being annoying, so I'm just going to leave it there for now. So if you're having email Exchange server connection errors, this is where you would look if you are doing it manually, right? Chances are, if you are doing it manually, that this is where your mistake would be, right? But if you're doing it automatically, and then if it populates everything automatically for you, then you don't have to worry about it because your domain login will have all this information attached to it. So there's a high chance that that's not the issue. But when it comes to having a Exchange server connection issue, this is where you would check if you are configured manually, right? However, if you're still experiencing issues, and this is supposed to be done automatically, this and that, and you know that this is done correctly, you know there are no actual configuration issues with Exchange server. However, the main thing and the main reason why you cannot connect to an Exchange server if it's automatically set up for you and you don't actually do it manually is the fact that you may not be connected to the same network or domain, right? So let's say you're working from home and you're given a laptop, and then you use this laptop to access your work email. Well, if you're not connected to the work network, obviously you're not going to be connected to the Exchange server. So that's something to keep in mind. In that case, you would start your VPN connection. You would create your VPN connection. And by the way, I will post a quick link here so you guys can see, learn a little bit more about VPN if you're interested in that. So you would start your VPN, and then once you connect to the VPN, then you'll be able to connect to that Exchange server, right? Now, there are quite a few different things you can look at, which I can save for another video because I don't want to make this one too long. But there are a lot of other things you can do when it comes to dealing with Outlook. You can add shared mailboxes, many other things that are actually pretty cool when it comes to Outlook. So let me just go back here real quick and look at a couple of other options since I have this opened up. The second thing down here is basically data files. You get to it from the same place as if you open this up and you just select data files. This is where you would have. This usually has your archive files, so they're usually .pst format. So any archives that you create from within Outlook will be located here. I made an Outlook archive video, and I will also link that at the end of this video if you're interested for when it comes to archives, so you can have a look at that. Now, if you are experiencing just weird issues with your Outlook, and what I mean by that is, let me go ahead and open up Outlook. This is another troubleshooting thing you can look at. Let's say a user reports some random issues. They don't receive emails. There are issues with it, and you suspect that at some point there is an issue with their configuration, and you simply can't figure out what is it. It's like, everything's set up correctly. The Exchange server set up correctly. They're connected. They're on the same network, but still they're having these weird issues. It may not even be a connection issue, but it's something that you really cannot explain. However, sometimes the best thing to do is to create a new email profile. If you look at the third bottom option here, it says profiles, right? If you click on show profiles, you will see the current profile that we are using for this account. And this one by default is called Outlook. So we know that since it's selected by default like this, always use this profile, we know that currently we are using that profile for this account. You can create multiple ones, and don't ever delete this one just in case. However, you can create a new one. So if you click add new, you can call it new profile or whatever you want, and then you can configure their profile again. This will create a brand new one. If you go to user's local profile, so if you go to root of C, users, and I'm currently logged in under this username. So if you want to look at the Outlook data for this profile, you would go to app data, right? So it's user profile name, app data, and then you would look at local. And then from within local, you would go to Microsoft and then Outlook, right? And here's our profile, right? Here's our profile. We know that this is it, right? We looked at it so many times. You see? That's our profile for this. And this is local cached data for our inbox from the Exchange server. So every time you connect to the Exchange server, it downloads local cached version of the inbox, so that for faster access. You don't have to download it every time. And its extension is always going to be OST, right? Now you can also reset this by itself. So you close Outlook and you just right click, delete. Now always rename it, just don't delete it, but you can rename it. And once you open up Outlook once more, here, let's do that actually. It will create a brand new one, and that's one way to at least flush the cached version of the inbox if you suspect some issues. So I'm just going to call it old, and I'm going to open up Outlook again, right? And let me go back here. You can see how it created a brand new one for this. And once you do that, it will have to re-download everything that's in your inbox. So if you have a huge inbox, it may take a long time to actually populate anything. So let's say you do this, and you're doing it to troubleshoot Outlook, and the user is like, well, it's not coming back. I don't see anything. It's still broke. You broke it. No. If you look down here, you can see that it's downloading. A little like a bar here, and you would see it downloading right down here, right? So that's how you reset just the OST file. However, that doesn't reset the whole profile. So if you want to reset the whole profile, again, you would do it as so. You create a new one, new profile. All right. And I'm just going to create one real quick, just a kind of a fake one, if you will, right? Just going to create a fake one here. This should create a new profile for us. Now, whatever I just did here, you can ignore. I'm just creating another profile so you can see how we can have another profile set up. It's struggling here because it's trying to connect to something that doesn't exist, right? Okay. Finish. And now we have another profile. So if you want to use this new profile, you have to go here and select new profile, right? Because you don't want to confuse the user, like, what's going on? If you do this, and it says prompt for a profile, this is what would happen, right? You open up Outlook, and it says, well, which one do you want to use? And the user is like, well, I don't know. And they end up picking up the old one. And then it's still broken, right? We don't want that. So what we do is always use this one, new profile, okay. Outlook, right? And it's trying to connect to this broken one. Anyways, that's what would happen. It would load the new profile that you created. Obviously, this was not going to work because you saw what I did. The information was totally wrong just for the sake of creating a new profile. But again, if I go back to my old one, right? Let's see here, control panel, mail. Let's say you messed up that one. You want to go back to the old one. Select the old one. Boom. Okay. Now Outlook, and there you go. We're back to the old one, right? So there's one more thing that you can look at. For example, if you look at the inbox here, right? If you look at data property and look at the folder size, you can see the actual size of the folder. So let's say that the limit of the Exchange server for the inbox is, I don't know, let's say 4 megabytes, right? So you would basically have a total size in here. So if you know the limit is 4 megabytes, which would show as 4,000 kilobytes, then if it's more than that, then you know that user may have an issue when it comes to the limit of how big of their inbox is. Now, usually user would just report issues with sending and receiving email. They would, for example, be able to send but not receive email. First thing you need to look at is the size of their inbox. See if it's full or not. If it's full, then they need to make space. They can do that by creating new archives or deleting some old emails. A lot of times they have stuff, they deleted stuff, but it's actually still in their deleted items folder, for example. You know what I mean? So we have to flush all that until we make enough space for the Exchange server have the ability to send and receive emails. So if you have more than, in our case, we used 4,000 kilobytes, then if a user has 5,000, total size 5,000, then we won't be able to send nor receive. It varies. It's kind of a weird thing, but that's one of the things we have to look at. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked this video. At the end of the video, I will have the link, or I guess the link to my other videos for the archives, and I will post it at the end of this video. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, leave a comment, and share it with your friends. Bye-bye.